Welcome to my video. Please subscribe my channel. Imagine Alaska, a state connected to the rest of America by a single rugged road, the Alaska Highway, threading through British Columbia's wilderness. This iconic route, often seen as a symbol of resilience and connection, is more than just a road. It's a vital artery that sustains the livelihoods of countless Alaskans. This is Alaska's only land route for essential goods, a lifeline now under threat. Every day, convoys of trucks carry everything from food and medical supplies to construction materials and fuel, ensuring that Alaskan communities remain functional and thriving. British Columbia has imposed steep new tolls on American trucks, sending shockwaves from Anchorage to Washington, D.C. These tolls are not just a minor inconvenience. They represent a significant financial burden on every shipment that crosses the border. These aren't minor fees. They add thousands to every shipment, threatening Alaska's economy and daily life. Truck drivers, already under pressure, now face additional stress and financial strain, which could lead to a reduction in the number of deliveries. At border crossings, truckers face delays and costs that could cripple businesses and raise prices for every Alaskan. The increased wait times and bureaucratic hurdles are causing significant disruptions in the supply chain. Why would Canada, our closest ally, do this? The answer lies in a deepening trade dispute that's now boiling over. This conflict has roots in broader economic disagreements and political tensions that have been simmering for years. This isn't just about trucking, it's about sovereignty, security, and the future of US-Canada relations. The implications of this dispute extend far beyond the immediate economic impact, touching on national pride and international diplomacy. The tolls touch every Alaskan, from groceries to oil fields. The flow of goods is being choked. The ripple effects are felt in every corner of the state, from urban centers to remote villages. Many Americans see this as a targeted move, raising urgent questions about our partnership with Canada. The public outcry is growing, with citizens demanding answers and action from their leaders. As of September 8, 2025, the crisis is escalating, with consequences that could define our nations for generations. The stakes are high, and the resolution of this conflict will shape the future of US-Canada relations. The once unthinkable has happened. Our access to Alaska now comes with a price tag. This new reality forces us to reconsider the dynamics of our relationship with Canada and the true cost of our interconnectedness. To understand British Columbia's move, listen to Premier David Eby. He calls the tolls an act of self-defense, a necessary measure to protect Canadian interests. Canadian officials say they're responding to years of US tariffs and protectionist policies, especially under America First. These policies have strained the economic relationship between the two countries. They argue Canada's been unfairly targeted, and the Alaska Highway is their leverage point. This critical route is essential for trade and travel between the two nations. This isn't an isolated act. Canada is signaling it won't accept economic pressure without pushing back. The tolls are a clear message to the US that Canada is ready to defend its economic sovereignty. The tolls are part of a coordinated national strategy with support growing across Canada. Provinces are uniting in a show of solidarity, emphasizing the importance of a collective response. Canadian leaders feel overlooked and pushed into a corner, especially in industries like steel, aluminum, and lumber. These sectors have been hit hard by US policies, and the tolls are a way to fight back. The message: Canada demands respect and equal footing, using the tools it has to force a new conversation. The tolls are just one part of a broader strategy to ensure fair treatment. Premier Eby's stance resonates. Quiet diplomacy is out, visible action is in. His assertive approach is gaining traction among Canadians who feel their concerns have been ignored for too long. The era of turning the other cheek is over. Canada wants a seat at the table as an equal. The tolls are a bold step towards achieving that goal, signaling a new chapter in US-Canada relations. The US response was immediate: outrage in Washington with threats of harsh retaliation and talk of a trade war. Former President Trump called the tolls an attack on US sovereignty, vowing not to back down. But for Alaskans, the crisis is personal. Their economy, already fragile, now faces soaring costs and uncertainty. The highway is essential for fresh food, medical supplies, and equipment. Tolls threaten to disrupt it all. Businesses scramble to absorb costs, but higher prices seem inevitable for families already struggling. Job losses loom as projects stall and goods are delayed. The Alaska Highway isn't just a road, it's a lifeline now squeezed by politics. Small businesses and remote communities feel the pinch first. The fear is real. Alaska's way of life is being held hostage in a dispute far beyond their control. The stakes for Alaska and the nation have never been higher. The tolls are just the start. Canada's response is national and strategic. Provinces across the country are uniting, applying pressure on the US from multiple fronts. Ontario, for example, has slapped a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the US, raising costs for millions of Americans. Other provinces are boycotting US goods, especially from states backing aggressive trade policies. Canadian governments are also limiting contracts with US businesses, hitting American companies directly. The goal: create enough economic pain to force Washington to negotiate. This is a dramatic shift. Canada is abandoning quiet diplomacy for full-spectrum economic confrontation. The message is clear. Canada is willing to endure short-term pain for long-term respect. The US-Canada relationship is being redefined, and the consequences are rippling across both nations. Canada's pushback is coordinated, calculated, and just beginning. The Alaska Highway, built during World War II, was always more than a road. It's a symbol of US-Canada partnership and a vital supply line. Today it's the only land link between Alaska and the lower 48, crossing some of the continent's toughest terrain. British Columbia's tolls are enforced at existing way stations, making avoidance impossible. This simple move has exposed Alaska's vulnerability. Its access depends entirely on Canadian goodwill. The highway is the express lane for fresh food, urgent equipment, and oversized cargo. Now, every shipment faces delays and extra costs, threatening Alaska's economy at every level. The crisis reveals a harsh truth. Alaska's land access is a fragile thread, easily squeezed by international disputes. What was once a seamless corridor is now a choke point. Geography is destiny, and even the closest allies can clash over the lines on a map. This toll crisis is the latest flare-up in a long-simmering US-Canada trade dispute, fueled by America First rhetoric and a growing sense of economic nationalism on both sides of the border. For years, tensions have simmered beneath the surface, occasionally erupting into public spats and policy changes that ripple through both economies. Former President Trump often cited a massive trade deficit with Canada, using it as a rallying cry for tougher trade policies. But the real numbers tell a more complex story, one that's often lost in the noise of political speeches and headlines. In many years, the US actually runs a trade surplus with Canada when services like tourism, finance, and technology are included. Goods may flow one way, but services flow the other, creating a balance that's rarely acknowledged in public debate. While Canada fiercely protects its dairy sector with quotas and tariffs, its average tariffs on US goods are often lower than US tariffs on Canadian goods. The reality is a patchwork of protections and open markets, not a one-sided affair. The disconnect between political rhetoric and economic reality has bred frustration and mistrust among workers, business owners, and everyday citizens who rely on cross-border trade for their livelihoods. Canadian officials feel unfairly maligned, arguing the relationship is balanced and mutually beneficial, and that both countries gain from cooperation rather than confrontation. Quiet corrections haven't worked. Visible action, like tolls and new border fees, is now their strategy to get Washington's attention and force a real conversation. The dispute is about more than numbers. It's about fundamentally different worldviews, national priorities, and the stories each country tells itself about fairness and success. Americans focus on specific grievances and perceived slights, while Canadians emphasize the importance of the overall partnership and the shared prosperity it brings. The result? A trade war fought not just with tariffs and tolls, but with competing facts, political posturing, and a growing sense of division. The real casualty is trust between two nations that depend on each other for jobs, security, and a shared future. Trust that's now at risk of unraveling. Alaska isn't just remote, it's a strategic powerhouse for the US. Its oil reserves and military bases make it vital for energy and national defense. Alaska's location gives the US a commanding presence in the Arctic, now a global hotspot as new shipping lanes open. Disruptions to Alaska's supply lines threaten not just its economy, but America's security posture in the region. The recent Trump-Putin summit in Alaska underscored its global significance. Yet while Alaska hosts world leaders, its own connection to the US is under threat from Canadian tolls. This dispute is about more than groceries. It's about sovereignty and security. Ensuring Alaska's access is a national imperative in a rapidly changing world. The US-Canada standoff is hurting real people, truckers, farmers, and families on both sides of the border. Border communities, once tightly knit, now face anxiety and economic pain. But there's hope. Canada's incoming Prime Minister Mark Carney signals a willingness to reset relations. Both nations need to step back, lower the rhetoric, and find compromise, rolling back tariffs and tolls, and restoring trust. A new framework for resolving disputes is needed, based on fairness and impartial arbitration. The crisis is a wake-up call. Even the closest friendships need constant care and respect. The US and Canada share more than a border. They share values, history, and a model partnership. The time for dialogue is now. The future depends on rebuilding the bridges that connect us.